Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics that we shall be discussing today from today's Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. Some topics are purely relevant for prelims and few topics relevant for prelims as well as mains. If you're liking our initiative of daily newspaper analysis, do let us know by liking this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. And before we start, two important announcements. Number one, our ongoing offer for those who wish to enroll with us for civil services preparation. For GS, CSAT, current affairs, answer writing. Right now, our plus subscription is available at 16,999. And one more thing, should you wish to prepare with us in Unacademy Platinum, and those who don't know about Platinum, there is a batch size of 100. 100 students in one batch, your camera on, teacher's camera on, more interaction, and the students have said that they're able to retain concepts better by being part of Unacademy Platinum. And if you enroll with us in Platinum today and tomorrow, you will get an additional 10,000 discount on our fee. Let's get started and let's look at topic number one, a recusal test. The Delhi High Court failed. But we will not only discuss this case, we will discuss two cases so that we can have a holistic understanding of what is this concept called recusal. Basically, recusal means there is a judge who is hearing this case. We want this judge to recuse from this case so that someone else can hear this case, not this particular judge. Why? What is the legal basis of recusal? We will discuss in this analysis. But I told you we will not only discuss Mr. Kejriwal's case and his tussle with the Delhi High Court judge, we will also talk about another important case, and that case is Dr. Jaya Thakur v. Union of India 2024. Now, what is this issue? The year was 2023 in Anup Baranwal case. A constitution bench of the Supreme Court said free and fair elections is part of the basic structure. So the current system of appointments, when we appoint the Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners, this violates free and fair elections. This violates the principles of equality under Article 14. Why? Because the system of appointments is arbitrary. Arbitrary in the sense, Election Commission of India can be viewed as a neutral umpire to officiate elections, to ensure superintendence, direction, conduct, and control of elections. Now, what if the appointment process is such that it favors the party in power at the center? Then can this umpire be a neutral umpire, officiating the match between the opposition and the party in power? So at that time, these CECs and election commissioners, they were appointed by the president based on the recommendation of the party in power, which means it was arbitrary according to Anup Baranwal judgment of 2023. That is why the Supreme Court said till the time Parliament enacts a law and changes the way in which the CEC and election commissioners are appointed, till that time these individuals will be appointed by the president but based on the recommendations of a committee. And this committee will be Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Justice of India. Right? But this was in 2023. Immediately after this judgment, a law was passed, and according to that law, CJI was replaced by a union minister nominated by the Prime Minister. Now the question is, isn't this system similar to what we had previously, where the party in power was advising the president who should be appointed as the CEC and the election commissioners? Because the composition is tilted in favor of the party in power. That is why Dr. Jaya Thakur approached the Supreme Court, challenging the validity of this law, keeping in mind the spirit of the Anup Baranwal judgment. Long story short, original constitution said the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners shall be appointed by the president. But how? For that, law should be enacted by the parliament. For decades since the commencement of the constitution, such a law was not enacted, which means CEC and election commissioners were appointed by the president but based on the recommendations of the party in power, the prime minister. And then when the matter went to the court, Supreme Court said till the parliament enacts this law, CEC and election commissioners will be appointed by the president but based on the recommendations of this committee. Because previous appointments were violative of Article 14, arbitrariness. Then Parliament enacted that law, and basis that law, the President shall appoint the CEC and election commissioners based on the recommendations of a committee, which will have Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, and Union Minister, which means 2 out of 3 members, they are favoring the party in power. Is this law constitutional or unconstitutional? Is this law also arbitrary or not? For that, the court had to decide according to this petition. But when this petition was being heard, the Chief Justice of India was told, you please recuse from hearing this case. Why? Because there is conflict of interest. Because according to your judgment, you should have been part of this committee to recommend CEC and election commissioners to the president. Now, according to this law, which you have to decide whether it is legal or illegal, you are not part of this committee. Maybe you will rule in such a manner that you will say, no, CJI will have to be part of this committee to recommend names to the president as CEC and election commissioners. So there is a conflict of interest involved. You cannot be the judge in your own case. And the chief election commissioner said, okay, I'm not going to hear this case. Someone else will hear this case. This is where the Chief Justice of India recused himself from hearing this particular case because there was a potential conflict of interest involved. But in India, is there a law which talks about recusal of judges? No. Is there a law, something that we see in United States? Yes. In United States, there is section 455 of the United States Code, which requires that a federal judge need to disqualify themselves in any case where their impartiality might be questioned, where it might be seen that the judge is biased, where the judge is not impartial, where the judge is partial. In that case, you need to recuse yourself. This is explicitly stated in United States. But in India, it is not part of any legal framework. This depends upon the conscience of a particular judge. Are you following me or not? Great. Similar question arose way back in 2015. We know that there is a collegium system of judicial appointments where the Chief Justice of India and senior judges of the Supreme Court recommend to the President who should be the judge of the Supreme Court and High Court. Right. Replacing this collegium was NJAC. Constitution was amended. 99th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. The year was 2014. And Constitution said, now instead of collegium, we will have NJAC. And NJAC will recommend to the President who should be appointed as the judge of the Supreme Court and High Court. And NJAC consisted of Chief Justice of India, 2 senior judges of the Supreme Court, the Union Minister of Law and Justice, and 2 eminent persons. Matter went to the Supreme Court. The constitutional validity of NJAC was challenged before the 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court. There also, the Chief Justice of India was asked, please recuse. Don't hear this case. You should not hear this case. Why? Because there is a conflict of interest involved. Because if collegium system gives you the powerful role to recommend to the president the names of the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, NJAC dilutes that power. So there is a conflict of interest. When you sit on this bench to decide on this particular case, whether collegium will continue or NJAC will continue, since there is a conflict of interest involved, you please recuse from hearing this case. Chief Justice of India, Justice Kher, refused. He said, no, I'm not going to recuse myself from hearing this particular case. Why? He gave reasons also. Reason was, first he said, why are you asking me personally to recuse from hearing this case? What about the 4 other judges who are also going to hear this case? Some of them are going to become the Chief Justice of India in the future. So isn't conflict of interest there as well? That is why I personally will not recuse from hearing this case. Number 1. Number 2, he said there is something called doctrine of necessity. If you have a problem, you approach the court. Whether NJAC is constitutional or not, the only forum which will decide it is the judiciary. And on judiciary itself, you are leveling allegations of bias or non-fairness or partiality. In this case, if the only forum that faces this conflict is also the forum which can resolve that conflict, in that case, we have to yield to institutional obligation. It is the obligation of our institution to give justice in this particular case. So I will not refuse to hear this case, but I will be fair. Long story short, the question before the court is whether you can recuse from hearing a particular case. Since there is no law on this matter, we only go by the conscience of individual judges. And it depends upon the conscience of a judge. And how is that conscience based on? Listen to me carefully. When the Chief Justice of India, in this particular case, which is hearing the J.R. Thakur petition, the Chief Justice of India said, I will recuse from hearing this case. But I am also saying that no other judge who in future is going to become the Chief Justice of India will hear this particular case. And some other judges will hear this case. Isn't there partiality here also? Why? Because CJI is the master of the roster. If indeed the judge is biased or can be biased, he can be biased in a different way as well. Even if the CJI is not hearing this case, but CJI, while allocating these cases to judges, CJI may identify those judges who will favor the judiciary. In that case, isn't there conflict of interest? Ideally then, if the CJI has recused himself from hearing this case, the CJI should have said, I will not set up this bench. Someone else will set up this bench who is going to hear this case. Because if I set up this bench, then I am also partial. Further, he said no other judge should hear this particular case. No other judge who in future is going to become the Chief Justice of India. When recusal is an act of individual judicial conscience, how can it be mandated in advance by a predecessor? How can I, as the Chief Justice of India, mandate for my predecessors, mandate for my successors that you should not be hearing this case? Because it depends upon the conscience of an individual judge. Conscience in the sense, we had Justice Arun Mishra. Justice Arun Mishra, many years ago, had given a verdict on Land Acquisition Act. Indore case. Way back in 2009, he had given a judgment on the Land Acquisition Act. Basically, compensation once it is paid to those who own this land. For example, this is a land. We have to acquire this land. How can we say this acquisition is final? The government will have to pay the compensation. And this land has to be acquired. Possession of this land should have taken place. Is it and or? That means should both conditions be satisfied? One condition is possession has to be taken. Another condition is compensation has to be paid. Should both these conditions be satisfied? or either of the two conditions. In this particular case, compensation was paid, but it was not accepted by the landowners. But condition was satisfied. Compensation is paid, but whether it is accepted by the landlords or not, that is not mentioned. In that case, Justice Arun Mishra had presided over a bench and said, if compensation is paid and it is deposited in the treasury, whether the landowners have accepted that compensation or not, doesn't matter, the land acquisition is valid. When this was challenged before the Supreme Court, Justice Arun Mishra was then judge of the Supreme Court. So previously he was part of the Indore bench. Later he was part of the Supreme Court. Now Justice Arun Mishra is now sitting on this bench to decide whether this Land Acquisition Act judgment which I have given in Indore, whether it is correct or not. Petitions were filed before Justice Arun Mishra that you recuse yourself from hearing this case because there is a potential conflict of interest involved. You are presiding over the bench which is going to decide whether your High Court judgment is correct or not. So there is an element of conflict of interest. Please recuse. He did not. Why? Because it depends upon the individual judge's conscience. Because it is not mandated by any law. To be fair to Justice Arun Mishra, by this logic, review petitions should also not be heard by the same judges who have given the judgment. Because once Supreme Court gives the verdict, you can challenge that verdict in a review petition. And review petition is heard by the same judges who have given the original verdict. Even then, the curative petition is also heard by the same judges who have dismissed your review petition and 3 senior judges of the Supreme Court. By that logic, there is non-fairness there as well. There is conflict of interest there as well. So it depends upon the judge's individual conscience. What was the matter before the court way back in 1987? And for that, we need to understand Mr. Arvind Kejriwal's case. Mr. Arvind Kejriwal was arrested under the Delhi excise scam or liquor scam. Allegation was that there is a corruption. But he was acquitted by the trial court. Matter went to the High Court. Now, when an appeal is being filed in the High Court, a particular judge is hearing this case. Mr. Kejriwal alleges that this judge is biased against me. Why? Various reasons he is giving. Reason number 1, this particular judge has attended the events of a political party affiliate, has attended the event of RSS, the legal wing of the RSS. Mr. Kejriwal says, since this case is not a normal corruption case, it's a political case against me. I have been acquitted by the trial court. But Mr. Amit Shah, the Honorable Home Minister, has said that I will be penalized. I will be prosecuted by the High Court. How does he know? Does he know because the judge is attending the events of the RSS? Since this is a political case, I won't get justice from this particular judge. You recuse from hearing this case. Who is arguing on behalf of the Union government? Solicitor General of India. Solicitor General of India has under his control 2 children of this particular judge. They are also legal counsels of the Union government. And who assigns cases to these 2 children of this judge? Solicitor General of India. Mr. Kejriwal says this is another element of bias. You have made some remarks against me. And I think since this is a political case, the other person who is arguing on behalf of the Union government is the Solicitor General of India. He is in control of your 2 children's professional lives. Since you are deeply entrenched into this, I don't see I will get justice if you will hear this case. Please recuse. The judge finally did not recuse. The judge said, no, you are not casting aspersions on me. You are casting aspersions on the entire judiciary. So you have made some allegations, but these allegations are unfounded. Without any material evidence, you have filed these allegations against me. I will not recuse. According to this article which is written in today's The Hindu newspaper, they cite this Ranjit Thakur v. Union of India case 1987. where the Supreme Court explained it succinctly. What do we mean by bias? And when can the judge recuse from hearing a case? The Supreme Court explained that what is the proper approach for a judge? If I am a judge, you are a petitioner, you are asking me to recuse from hearing this particular case, how should I approach this case? I will not look into my mind and ask myself whether I am honest. I have to look into your mind and try to analyze from your perspective whether you think I am honest. And if there is a reasonable ground on the basis of which you assume that I am not fair, I will be biased, I should recuse from hearing this case. And this is the central argument of this article written in today's The Hindu newspaper. The judge of the Delhi High Court should have refused from hearing this case, alleging bias by Mr. Kejriwal. But there is a bigger issue. Fairness plus bench shopping. Let me give you an analogy. For example, there are 3 teachers in your college or university who teach the same subject. And the university authorities have assigned teacher X to teach you that subject. You protest. You say, no, I want Z to give us these classes, to lecture us these classes. Why? Because this particular teacher is very lenient when it comes to the attendance policy. This particular teacher is very lenient when it comes to assigning marks or giving assignments. If students get to decide who should teach them, and students keep in mind who is the most lenient teacher, who is most liberal when it comes to awarding marks, who is more lenient when it comes to assigning assignments, you will basically choose that particular teacher. This is what happens in judiciary then. I will take a look at this judge. I will say, no, this judge is very harsh when it comes to corruption cases. This judge is very honest. This judge is not biased. I will basically say that there is an allegation of bias in him. My conscience tells me I will not get fair justice from this particular judge. You should recuse. So is it about fairness or is it about bench shopping? This is the clash that results because of this particular case. But ultimately, since on recusal there is no law enacted, there is no ruling enacted, as such, it depends upon the conscience of a particular judge. That completes our topic number 1. If you have understood this, please let me know. Great. Let's look at another article, the RTE Act and the idea of social inclusion. Way back in 1993, Supreme Court in Unikrishnan case had said that right to education is a fundamental right. But then the year was 2001, 86th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. Article 21 capital A was added to the Constitution. Right to education was made into a fundamental right for all the children in the age group of 6 to 14 years. And to implement this fundamental right, a law was enacted by the Parliament in the year 2009, known as the RTE Act, Right to Education Act. There are various important provisions of this law. One important provision which is mentioned in this particular article is about 25% reservation. If this is a private school and in the neighborhood of this private school there are people who are from weaker sections of the society, economically weaker sections of the society, socially weaker sections of the society, 25% of the seats in this private school should be reserved for the children of economically weaker sections of the society. Once again, what the court has done, the Supreme Court has reaffirmed that the reservation of 25% seats in these private schools for those students who belong to economically weaker sections of the society, socially disadvantaged sections of the society, this is constitutionally valid. It is not inherently unconstitutional. Once again, the court has reiterated this, reaffirmed this position. And this article justifies the Supreme Court verdict. And this topic becomes very important not just for GS paper 2, it also becomes important for GS paper 1, which deals with the society of India. How? The argument before the court was, and the argument given by the individuals, by the critiques of this law, they say by enacting this law, the union government or the state is saying hands up. Providing good quality education is not in our domain now. We are outsourcing this to private schools. When we are outsourcing this to private schools, that means private schools will now become the vanguards of providing good quality education to the children. That means now the state will not have to invest in good quality education, will not have to invest in public schools and government schools. But according to this article, if government school enrollments are falling, and on the other side, the private school enrollment are increasing, critics say this is the ill effect of the RTE Act, where you have mandated 25% reservation in private schools to economically weaker sections of the society. Now what we have seen the rising admissions in the private schools, falling admissions in the government school. But according to the writers, this is mischievous reading of the law, because the law does not dilute the role of the state in investing in government schools, in investing in public schools. After all, education is not a zero-sum game. That if the admissions in government schools will fall, admissions in the private schools will increase, which primarily means government schools will have no role and the entire role will be taken up by the private schools. No. Both government sector and private sector, they have to collaborate with each other. They have to integrate with each other to provide good quality education. Creation of shared learning spaces for the children. So this is mischievous reading of the law, that with the RTE Act, now there is a role of only private schools in imparting education. The role of the government and the government-run institutions are diluted. No, that's not the case. Critics argue that after the enactment of this law, we have seen increase in the admissions of the private schools. This article says no. There has been a shift towards private schooling way before RTE was enacted. RTE was enacted in 2009, but it came into force on 1st of April 2010. So ideally, after the enactment of this law, the private school enrollment should have witnessed a sudden increase and the government school enrollment should have witnessed a drastic fall. But the results show us, the data shows us that it started way back before the enactment of this law. In fact, the Asar report of 2006, it significantly highlights that private schools are growing at the expense of government school enrollment. So if RTE was responsible for declining or reduced admissions in government schools, that should have happened after 2010. But Asar report of 2006 captures this, which means shift towards private schooling predates the RTE Act. According to this article, and this is where it becomes important for your GS paper 1, there were some critics who said, what is this 25% reservation for economically weaker sections of the society in private schools? Listen to me carefully. 75% of the children in these private schools will be children of judges, politicians, bureaucrats, businessmen from the affluent sections of the society. 25% will be from the weaker sections of the society. Imagine the toll it will have on the minds of these children, who will now be exposed to this naked wealth of the people. At an early age, they will be exposed to this wealth. At an early age, they will be exposed to the lifestyle of their fellow classmates. It will have negative impact on their minds. But when we look at this article, it says since this law was rolled out, 5 million children have walked through the doors of educational spaces, and these spaces were previously out of reach for them. Retention is 90%. So if we thought or assumed that with the RTE Act, if 25% reservation is given to the economically weaker sections of the society children, after some time they will move out of these schools. They will drop out of these schools because they will not be able to withstand the display of the naked wealth by the children of the affluent sections of the society. But that's not the case because the retention is 90%. Researches have been conducted, such as by Rao Gautam in 2019. This is beauty. Mixed classrooms, they increase generosity, give and take, sharing, reduce discrimination, stronger pro-social behavior without any adverse impact on academic outcomes or classroom discipline. So people thought that there won't be any discipline in the classroom because now there are two classes of people in the classroom. Those who have wealth, they will be supported more by the teachers and they will perform well in the class tests. They will perform well at studies. And the children belonging to the neglected society, they will be languishing at the bottom. But that's not the case. In fact, whatever money is to be spent, it's not that 25% reservation, they are provided free of cost education, but whatever fee they were supposed to pay will be paid by the government. In fact, for your prelims examination, you have to keep in mind that this share is divided between the union government and the state government. Union government reimburses this payment to the state governments. And according to this article, reimbursements are centrally streamlined, transparent, and ultimately it benefits the states. Although there have been some issues, for example, Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has long claimed that the reimbursements under this RTE Act have not been given to us by the union government. Why? Because union government is forcing us to implement national education policy which mandates 3-language formula. But if we look at other states, the reimbursement has been streamlined. The union government is reimbursing the costs which the state governments bear, which the state governments face by providing education to these children belonging to the vulnerable societies. Basically, I belong to a poor section of the society. I will be getting a seat in a private school. I don't have to pay the fee. But the fee that I was supposed to pay, which I don't have to pay, will be reimbursed to that school by the state government. State government will get this reimbursement from the union government. Then this is how it works. Although there are some concerns. Concerns in the sense, the school says you don't have to pay the fee because the fee will be paid by the government. But apart from that, there are hidden costs. For example, uniform, books, materials, which puts burden on the families. Although the law mandates that all expenses, including uniform, books and materials, will be borne by the government. Implementation has remained uneven. There are states such as Telangana, there are states such as Gujarat, union territories such as Delhi, where it is effectively implemented. But there are also states such as UP, such as Bihar, where RTE is not effectively implemented, particularly this section which talks about 25% reservation. And that is the crux of this particular article. This completes our topic number 2. Let's look at topic number 3. Elections. Now the final phase, the second and the last phase of the West Bengal elections is underway today. And tonight we will also see the exit poll results, findings, whether those exit polls are correct, incorrect, off the mark or on the target remains to be seen. But the fact is we have seen increased voter participation. massive turnout. For example, in Tamil Nadu, the turnout was roughly 85.1%. In West Bengal, the turnout has been in the first phase 93.2%. Is this turnout to be celebrated? According to this editorial, it says it's a false high. Why? You calculate these percentages based on denominator. Denominator means what is the electoral roll. But with special intensive revision carried out in these states, which have removed a large percentage of the voters, in some cases 8%, in some cases 10%, in some cases 13%. So when the denominator is less, we celebrate the high voter turnout. So we have to read this data cautiously. For example, the Hindu editorial says, what about Chennai? Chennai has recorded a voter turnout of 80%, which is more than 20% of what it used to be. It used to be 60% and now it is 80%. But 80% bases this denominator, total number of voters. It used to be 24 lakh in 2021. It is still 24.4 lakh in 2026. So if 24 lakh voter base gives us 80% voter turnout in 2026, which means the same number of people turned out to vote in 2021 as well. And at that time, the voter turnout was only 60%. But be that as it may, it talks about SIR. SIR, Special Intensive Revision, basically purification of the electoral rolls. Pandit Nehru had mentioned at least 2 times in the parliament, because the first election happened in 1951. Before that, Pandit Nehru was the prime minister. He mentioned at least 2 times in the parliament that we are going to conduct the elections very soon. But both the times, Election Commission of India resisted, headed by Sukumar Sen, the Chief Election Commissioner. Why? Because he said, first we need to purify the electoral rolls. What is the purpose of special intensive revision? The purpose is to remove those voters who are dead. Remove those voters who have shifted to other places. Remove the falsely included voters. And on this purity of electoral rolls lies the beauty of our democracy. That does not mean that unnecessarily eligible voters should be removed from the electoral rolls. But that also does not mean those who are not eligible to vote, they are made to enroll in the electoral rolls. Just if you deny right to vote to somebody who is eligible, it is sin. It is also a sin to give voting rights to somebody who is not eligible, maybe a foreigner. And for that, special intensive revision is a must. Whether carried out by Election Commission fairly or unfairly, that's a different question. But nobody can discount the role and the power of the Election Commission of India to purify these electoral rolls, because that is the mandate given to them by the Constitution. Under Article 324, that is the mandate given to it by the Representation of the People Act 1950 as well. Whenever you see high voter turnout, and this is where sociological analysis needs to be done. If you are a student of sociology or political science, this is what you need to keep in mind. Whenever voter turnout is high, we quickly jump to a conclusion that it amounts to anti-incumbency. Which means whenever voter turnout is high, it means that people are coming out in large numbers to displace the party in power, to vote out the party in power. So high voter turnout is always associated with the party in power losing power. Whether that will happen this time or not, that we will have to see. Second, it may also amount to more voter enthusiasm. For example, in case of Tamil Nadu, the entry of a third force, TVK, of superstar Vijay, Whether that has driven the youngsters to come out of their homes and cast vote in large numbers, that also remains to be seen. But that we will come to know only after the results are declared. And at the same time, maybe this high voter turnout is because of SIR. Because what if tomorrow another campaign is launched to weed out illegal migration? Maybe NRC is carried out. There, this data may play a very important role whether you have voted in the Indian elections or not. If you voted in the Indian elections, you can lay your claim as being the citizens of India. So you want to register your vote so that tomorrow nobody can doubt your citizenship credentials. Maybe that is why fearing a possible NRC and fearing a possibility where you have to prove your citizenship again, people are coming out in large numbers and exercising their right to vote. These are multiple reasons for high voter turnout. That completes our topic number 3. Let's look at topic number 4, Battle of Wills. This editorial calls the United States and Israel's war on Iran as an illegal war. And we know what happened in late February this year, war, and how Iran basically launched attacks on its neighbors, the GCC countries. And then the Strait of Hormuz was blocked by Iran, using Strait of Hormuz as its defensive mechanism. There is something called deterrent. You ask all the countries who possess nuclear weapon, why do you have nuclear weapon? They will say, we don't want to use it, but it acts as a deterrent. Which means other countries, they will think twice, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times before launching a war against us, before launching ballistic missiles against us, because we have a nuclear weapon. This nuclear weapon acts as a deterrent. United States, Israel, the principal reason why they waged a war against Iran is because they thought, or they alleged, or they believed, or they felt that Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. If it develops a nuclear weapon, it's going to be challenging security scenario for the entire Middle East. And it is also going to be challenging to the existence of Israel. And that is why they launched a war. Critics now argue that since nuclear weapon acts as a deterrent, now Iran has used its another nuclear weapon, which is Strait of Hormuz. By blocking it, an important sea route from where 1/4 of the world's crude oil passes, an important route from where the shipments go, and India is heavily dependent on this, apart from Malacca Strait. This is Iran's nuclear weapon. But what United States now has done, it has blocked the Gulf of Oman, saying if you block international trade along the Strait of Hormuz, we will block Iranian ships also. They cannot cross the Gulf of Oman. Now, this is where the talks between United States and Iran, they are focusing on. You block Strait of Hormuz, then I will block. They say first you block, then I will block. And also what is going to be the status of Iran's nuclear program? What is going to be the status of the enriched uranium of close to 400 kilogram, which the West alleges Iran has enriched up to 60% of uranium, which may be quickly used for the manufacturing of a nuclear weapon, nuclear bomb. This editorial says Iran should not cause inconvenience to the world by blocking Strait of Hormuz, because Iran is now viewed by many people in the world, many countries, as an underdog who withstood the challenge of the mighty US and Israel. Even after so many days of war, United States has not achieved something tangible apart from killing the supreme leader of Iran. So if this status or newfound status of Iran as the underdog of the world needs to be maintained, it should unblock the Strait of Hormuz according to this editorial. And United States should also reciprocate. Reciprocate how? By withdrawing some of the sanctions it has imposed against Iran. So just using this concept deterrent, linking it with Strait of Hormuz. We will be done with this topic because you already have read a lot, witnessed a lot on this particular topic. I don't wish to elaborate any further. Clear? Let's look at another topic. UAE announces exit from OPEC group. OPEC as well as OPEC plus. These facts can be relevant for your prelims examination. OPEC is basically a cartel. Group of countries, oil producing and exporting countries, they come together and they decide as if they want to control the prices of oil products. How much to be sold, at what cost to be sold, what should be the supply of oil in the global market, that this cartel decides. They decide the price. They control the price. This was founded in 1960 in Baghdad, which is in Iraq. Later on, the headquarters was shifted to Vienna. It is basically an intergovernmental organization. That means governments are part of this cartel called OPEC. Originally, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, these were part of the OPEC countries. Qatar was also once part of this OPEC, but it withdrew in 2019 because they said we want to focus on LPG rather than crude oil. And UAE has now decided that we want to exit from it. Exit why? Because this is going to meet our long-term requirements. Basically, UAE is upset. Upset with Iran and other Gulf countries and other Arab countries also. Why? Listen to me carefully. This also speaks about larger rivalry between UAE and Saudi Arabia. Both Sunni-dominated countries and both trying to be the leaders of the Muslim world. Saudi Arabia, by fact that two of the most holiest sites of Muslims are there in Saudi Arabia, Mecca and Medina, they have taken the leadership of the Muslim community. Now UAE and Saudi Arabia, they have rifts with each other. And UAE says that once US and Israel launched a war on Iran, Iran retaliated by launching a war on its neighbors, the GCC countries. Arab countries have not spoken much against Iran, but UAE says we are shocked by the non-cohesive nature in which GCC has been working, Gulf Cooperation Council, consisting of the Gulf countries. And that is why it seems as a mark of protest, the UAE has withdrawn from OPEC, which basically means now UAE will not be part of this group, which is a cartel. And now it will independently chart out its way of supplying oil to the world. This OPEC. OPEC plus is what? Russia is not part of OPEC, but Russia is part of OPEC plus. There are other countries, Russia, Kazakhstan, Mexico, which are also oil producing countries. They also said informally, we also want to join this cartel and control the oil and the price of the oil that is available in the world. So that is what we call OPEC plus. So OPEC is oil producing and exporting countries, which started in 1960. And in 2016, other countries which are also oil producing, they informally decide to cooperate with each other to ensure that this cartel works. That is OPEC plus. And UAE has decided to withdraw both from OPEC as well as OPEC plus beginning May 2026. Clear? Let's look at another case on TCS harassment and conversion case. Lots of controversy on this topic. Basically, allegation is that there are some Muslims who lure non-Muslim girls, preach them about Islam, threaten them, coerce them, and in one case, one Muslim man had allegedly sexual relations with a non-Muslim woman, hiding his identity that he was already married, tried to forcibly convert her on the pretext of marriage. This is something that became known to her family, and then her family approached the police, and then police decided to launch an investigation into this TCS office in Nashik, and then revealed a modus operandi where through coercion, through allurement, through threats, through sexual harassment, non-Muslim girls were lured into Islam or threatened. This is one side. On the other side, there are people who say that this was a consensual relationship. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not. We have to go by what is mentioned in the reports. But the other argument is this was a consensual relationship. And consensual relationship does not amount to criminality. Now, other women have also approached and said that we had filed a case under the POSH Act, but no action was taken by the HR management by TCS. Now the case is filed against TCS HR as well. There are some who say that there is some misreporting happening in this case. One particular individual was termed as the HR of TCS in Nashik. Later turns out that she was not the HR, she was no way involved in the recruitment, she was only a process associate. Now she is on the run and she has filed an anticipatory bail. So many things happening in this particular case. We will have to wait and watch what the courts finally say. But for your examination, what is the larger picture from this particular case? What's the big picture that you have to take from this particular case? Gaps in the implementation of laws like POSH Act. If these women had indeed filed cases, and these cases were filed before the Internal Complaints Committee, which is mandated by the POSH Act, where are the minutes of the meeting of those ICC? What happened to the recommendations given by the ICC, if at all there was a recommendation? Why action was not taken under the POSH Act? So failure in implementation of these protections like the POSH Act. That's number one. Number two, women in corporate sector. There is a power imbalance, exploitation, vulnerability. If you do well, for that you will have to indulge in a relationship with us. Otherwise, we are going to ensure that you are victimized. More work is given to you. For example, more callers are given to you. In 1 second, you will have to adhere to a caller. So we will make your life miserable if you will not toe our line. But be that as it may, if individuals have committed this crime, should it get framed as a community conflict and be termed as corporate jihad, an organized racket where Muslims come together to lure non-Muslims and convert them? If individuals have committed crimes, or if individuals are alleged to have committed crimes, should those get framed as community conflicts? That's another lesson from this particular topic. And the role of media, social harmony, and secularism in corporate spaces. For example, the allegation is that one individual has given a holy book to another individual. Now, giving a holy book to another individual in no way is a crime. In fact, is in no way a crime. And plus, in Maharashtra, there are no anti-religious conversion laws. There are anti-conversion laws in UP, but not in Maharashtra. In absence of that, how can this be criminalized? That's another matter. And this is the defense, arguments raised by the defense. So there are cases and instances and allegations of torture, allegations of harassment, allegations of forced conversion. And on the other hand, there is a defense, the role of the media, and the role of the investigative agencies. We will have to keep a track of this case, because once we keep a track of this case, these particular topics which are relevant for your examination, particularly in GS paper 1, you will have to keep in mind. Done? Any questions as of now? Okay. CITU knocks on ILO's door over suppression of workers' rights. You would know what happened in Noida, what these protests were all about. Shamsar has already made a video on this topic. But if you're aware of what has happened in Noida, now let's look at the role of the ILO. This is the only tripartite UN agency created in 1919, established in 1919. Tripartite in the sense, on one side there is government, on the other side there are employers, and on the other side there are employees. And together they decide what are the labor standards that we will have to maintain. What are the policies that we need to develop? How can we ensure decent workplaces for everybody? This ILO was set up as part of the Treaty of Versailles. You would know that it was this treaty which led to the end of the First World War. And this is what led to the creation of the League of Nations. India is a founding member of International Labour Organization. Where is the headquarters? Geneva in Switzerland. These facts are important. What has ILO decided and worked on? How many hours of work should the workers be forced to perform on a daily basis? Why and how should we define unemployment? Maternity protection should be given. Night work for women. What is the minimum age for work? Child labor needs to be eradicated. Night work for young persons. Incentivizing those workers. So basically, long story short, how can we make the work life better for the workmen, for the individual laborers? That is the mandate of the International Labour Organization. What is link of India with ILO? I told you India is the founding member of the ILO, but there are 8 very core conventions of ILO, and India has ratified 6 of them. Not 8, 6 of them. These are the 6 conventions ratified by India. And once you ratify a convention, you need to set in motion, implement those conventions. There are 2 which India has not ratified. Which are these? Freedom of Association and Protection of the Right to Organize Convention, and Right to Organize and Collective Bargaining Convention. Sir, how is this in news? Look at another topic in today's The Hindu newspaper, a question of choice. Chhattisgarh government had declared by an order that the government employees cannot be part of any political party. They cannot be organizing any protests. They cannot be striking. And the very next day, this order was revoked, suspended. Why India has not ratified these 2 conventions? For example, freedom of association and protection of the right to organize. By this logic, you can also, if we implement this convention, ratify this, then we have to give power, rights to our workers, even government workers, that you can form associations, which they have a right under Article 19 also, but then they can go on a strike as well. Then they can also become members of political parties as well, because they have the freedom to organize themselves. Then they can also receive donations if we ratify this convention. It is because of these reasons that we have not ratified these 2 conventions. So the role of the ILO, because the Central Indian Trade Union has now knocked on the doors of the ILO, because they allege that the government in India has suppressed the workers' rights. All the cases against those workers who have been detained, those cases should be withdrawn. That's their demand. The workers need to be released, and there should be independent judicial inquiry into the excesses committed by the police, alleged atrocity committed by the police. So since ILO is in the news, what is the history of ILO? Where is it headquarters? How was it set up? What does it focus upon? How many conventions have India ratified? Is there any link with any other newspaper article in today's newspaper or in future? That's what you need to keep in mind. Primarily relevant for the prelims examination. Let's look at another topic. Rajnath Singh calls for unified SCO approach to eliminate terrorism. SCO stands for Shanghai Cooperation Organization. What are the facts related to this organization. The predecessor of SCO is Shanghai 5. 1996, 1997, 5 organizations, 5 countries: Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. They came together and they set up Shanghai 5. Why? They want to collaborate with each other. They are bordering states, bordering countries. They say we should reduce the forces that we deploy in the border areas. Let's cooperate with each other. Let's not have tussle with each other. Cooperate with each other. Socio-economic development should take place. Another neighbor, Uzbekistan, joined in 2001. And in the same year, 2001, this Shanghai 5 became SCO. So if the question is asked in the examination, Shanghai Cooperation Organization was established in 2001. This statement is correct, because the predecessor was Shanghai 5. That Shanghai 5 was set up in 1996-97. India and Pakistan have been attending the meetings of SCO since 2007, but as observers. In 2017, they were given full membership. So both India and Pakistan were given full membership together in 2017. And this is where some people say, with the inclusion of India and Pakistan, SCO has lost its focus. That can be relevant for your mains examination. Question already has been asked on this topic. Why? Because this was meant to be a body to jointly address new challenges and threats, to promote economic growth, social and cultural development. But India is using this forum, and rightly so, to question Pakistan's commitment to democracy or Pakistan's commitment to peace, because Pakistan is resorting to threats through its proxy war, creating terrorism. Pakistan is leveling allegations against India in SCO. So SCO, which was meant to be a forum to promote development, is now viewed as a forum where India and Pakistan, they squabble with each other. But both the countries were given membership in 2017. Then Iran joined in 2023. With Iran conflict, which are these countries of which Iran is a part of? Which are these organizations, multilateral organizations Iran is part of? Becomes important for your examination. SCO is one such organization. Iran became a member in 2023. Belarus joined in 2024, which means it is a 10-member organization. 5 initially, Uzbekistan 6, India and Pakistan 8, Iran 9, Belarus 10. So these are the 10 member countries of SCO. It has 2 permanent bodies. One is the Secretariat, headquartered in Beijing, China. This becomes important. And it also has a regional anti-terrorist structure, RATS. And this RATS is headquartered in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. These facts are important, relevant for your exam. And this SCO has 2 official languages. Which are these 2 official languages? One is the Russian, the other is Chinese. But one more critical point, and then this topic is done. The most important body of SCO is Heads of State Council. It meets once every year. Then it also has Heads of Government meeting. Heads of Government. Because, for example, in India, head of the state is the president. Head of the government is the prime minister. So basically, this is the prime minister's council. The Council of Heads of Government, it adopts the organization's budget. It also meets once every year. Then another important body is Council of Ministers of Foreign Affairs. As a rule, and this becomes important fact for your exam, as a rule, this Council of Ministers of Foreign Affairs meets 1 month prior to the session of the Council of Heads of State. So whenever they have to meet, before that, 1 month, there is a Council of Ministers of Foreign Affairs meeting. Sir, what was this meeting attended by Mr. Rajnath Singh, the Defense Minister? He's not a Foreign Affairs Minister. These 3 are the important bodies: Heads of State Council, Council of Heads of Government, and Council of Ministers of Foreign Affairs. Then there is a Council of Ministers. Minister can be Technology Minister. Minister can be Environment Minister. minister can be defense minister. So on any other matter, ministers of these countries can come together and meet. But these three are the most important ones. Regularly, every year they meet. Last topic. According to MSF, Israel is using water access as a weapon in Gaza. What MSF has done, it has taken into account data from United Nations, European Union and World Bank, saying that Israel has damaged 90% of the water and sanitation infrastructure in Gaza, which means people are struggling for drinking water facilities in Gaza. And this means Israel is perpetrating genocide in Gaza Strip. But for your examination, what we need to keep in mind is MSF. Previously, a question on Amnesty International was asked in the prelims examination. Maybe a question on MSF may be asked. What is MSF? It's basically a French word. Médecins Sans Frontières, which basically translates into English as Médecins Sans Frontières, which means doctors without borders. This is a non-governmental organization. It's not a governmental organization. It's a non-governmental organization, which was established in 1971. But when you look at Médecins Sans Frontières, and you get a sense that it's a French word, which it is. So by that logic, its headquarters should also be in France. But its headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland. It was established in 1971 by a group of journalists and doctors. When there was a war and famine in Nigeria in 1970s. But the first time they came together to work. So MSF was set up by a group of doctors and journalists in 1971. Later it was headquartered in Geneva, in Switzerland. And the trigger for them was this war and famine in Nigeria. And collectively they decided that from now onwards, in any area which is affected by conflict or epidemic or disasters, for example, they played a very important role in the South Asia tsunami of 2004. They have played a role in Afghanistan. They have played a role in Gaza. They have played a role in so many Kala Azar epidemic, so many areas of the world. So whenever there is a conflict or epidemic or disasters, and whenever people are excluded from healthcare, we will come together. We are an NGO and we will take a voluntary contribution from people. So voluntarily people can contribute to us. Voluntarily organizations can contribute to us. And for that, in 1999, it bagged Nobel Peace Prize. One more fact, which may be relevant for your exam, the first activity they participated in was when there was a massive earthquake in the capital of Nicaragua in 1972, in which close to, estimate say 10,000 to 30,000 individuals lost their lives because of this earthquake. That was the first activity where this MSF came together to help the people. Médecins Sans Frontières. This is about our edition of today's The Hindu newspaper. If you have got benefited from this lecture, do let me know in the comment section. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same channel. Till the time, all the best.